Alright, ladies and mental gin finally emerged from the post-holiday trypto trance. That's when you eat leftover turkey every day for 2 weeks and you're so hopped up on tryptophan that you start liking electronic dance music. I know you're looking in front of you in horror of horrors. Dave's been thinking. So before we get to this, I have a spectacular idea. I thought I might actually show you guys when I do something useful. So we're gonna go down to the garage and get an eyeball and some measurements on a project, and then we're gonna come back and put our brain power down. Hold up, getting ahead of myself there. Before we step out into the horror of horrors, you guys need to know what I'm doing, because if you just saw it, it wouldn't mean anything to you. Aiming to be the hero of all bearded youngsters these days, we're going to go build a forge. What's that? Well, we're going to take wood lumps and pieces of Mother Earth, create a fire, create a lot of smoke, upset the neighbors, and turn your favorite artsy-fartsy bits of metal yard furniture into molten slag for no good reason. Forge takes heat to allow you to soften and bend metal, hammer metal, stretch, shorten, strengthen, weld, and, mostly I wanted to get off my butt and do something because it's, freezing outside, wholly unprepared for this frightfully cold weather. I don't know if anybody north of the Mason-Dixon line still alive, but anyway, freezing cold weather. Figured might do something useful, and if it's not a good forge, it'll be an excellent fire pit and yard art. Okay, once again for the third time. I think we're on take Z now. Camera kept blowing up on account of ran out of space, and I didn't realize it until the whole phone crashed, every app closed, nothing would work at all. Massive operation, fun times. Okay, so welcome to the mocking bench. Not really a bench, but that's what it gets used for. It's actually a hydraulic lift table used for carting stuff around, but it's great for finding the height and going, yeah, about right there, a little to the left, mocking up stuff. So what are we looking at? We're looking at the potential future occupation for the next couple weekends until the warm weather comes back and I say fuck it. Alright, so this guy is our fire pot or fire pit, whatever your linguistical habilitation is. Its purpose is to hold our fire. In this case, this one's cast iron, seen better days, rusted, cracked, and custom modifications for bigger speed. So we would put our coal in here, let it cook down, some of it slowly transforming into coke. For those of you with a drug habit, you know what I'm talking about. And eventually it gets to the bottom, and we have a blast of air coming up through here to make it burn super extra hot for heating our metal. We want it to get it anywhere between, not quite glowing to totally melting, you're on fire. So, fire pot. Now, the fire pot, because of our sweet custom speed hole down there, fellow was nice enough to make up a little grating to keep stuff from falling through. And then I was picking this up and looking over. It's still got bits of coal jammed right into it. Might see if that's any good for writing Lincoln style. I looked at the backside and I went, yowie. So it looks like there was a lot more holes drilled or cast or whatever. Like they're almost sleeved. But that could just be slag. But yeah, I think this thing is all plugged up with slag. So I'm going to get out the hammer, can't fix what ain't broke, so I gotta break it first. Drill this out or whatever I have to do to clean it up. Or maybe it works fine as is, maybe I'm an idiot, but I will fix it before I give it a shot. So, piece de resistance number 2. This is, depending on your pronunciation range, mine's a high F, what they call a two-year or a two-yeary or a, yeah, I like two-year. T-U-Y-E-R-E. There. So now you're going to get it right next time. This guy bolts onto the bottom of your fire pot. So up there in our custom speed hole, we have a slots for this thing. It comes in from one side, up from the other side, and then somebody sawed it so it will go all the way vertical. I don't think that's necessary. Probably a bad idea. It probably worked fine as designed, but you know, could be wrong. Maybe that guy was smarter than me. But so this is what they call a clinker breaker. This gets up in there. You got all that slag, that burnt up coal and ash, and it's too hot and you can't go poking in it. This comes up from the bottom side to break that loose to clear your air path. So air's going in from the bottom side. This is the bottom side of the fire pot, sits up here, and that's the upside down fire pot. That air comes in from this guy. Now, again, sweet custom modification. Somebody siliconed us some sort of dryer vent adapter or something to put tubing on here. I think this flange was originally made for something to bolt directly to it. Again, maybe he knows better than we did, and I won't second guess it. I might actually test this one before I take it off. So your air blast comes in here from your blower of whatever design, and it comes up to the fire pot. Now, that brings us to the less righteous end. This bottom should be covered. This should be our ash dump. Now, unfortunately, once upon a time it had a nice cast iron, it had a pivot, it had, you know, a weighted arm probably, and it would hold the ashes closed until enough built up, and then you would push down on the lever and it would go bloop, or you lift up on the lever. We're upside down right now, so however, it looks like that rusted or burnt right away from abuse and neglect and proper maintenance. It's probably 100 years old or so, you know. So left in a garden for 100 years, that tends to happen. Wasn't my garden. So somebody did us a favor of putting some red silicone and a metal band here to give us a nice flush bottom. And the Farmer John sheet metal and welding job, they had a tab made out of who knows what, and some screws, throwing things right now, chopped a piece of metal with kitchen shears and the blind man, who knows, but this would go over, was tack welded probably before I got it. It was broke when I got it, and held the bottom closed for the ashes to build up and put out your fire, right? So once you had enough, you let it out, let it dump, you know, try not to burn yourself. But the important thing is you need something to keep the air from your blower from going out the bottom when you want it to go through the top. Now you got all this grating that was here, the coal, everything that's piled on top of the forge. You can't let all that resistance force all your hot air out the open bottom. So we got to do something to put this and that and that and the other together, but we also need a table, a stand, something to mount it in, and we're going to go work on that. So just to give you guys a quick idea, some rough dimensions, you know, we're going to have to do some thinking along the way, but about like that. Okay, back to the danger zone. You know, you got to make best use of your kitchen counter when nobody's looking. Yep. So Dave's thinking again. Now, I'm not a metrician, so I do all my best measuring in feet, hands, inches, knees and toes. Our fire pot, drawn approximately about to scale 100% right there, was 12 double apostrophe to 14 double apostrophe, so about a foot by a foot and a half a dingus, 14.5 inches, give or take. And there's some protuberances and flangification, and so the cutout in the table might not quite be as so simple as these measurements, but this is just to get into the ballpark, you know, without jumping the fence quite yet. So we got to figure out, we got to fit this on a table of sorts. So I'll spare you the gory details of all the forums with the bearded, crusty old folks and young hipsters and debating about the best and worst ways to do this. And frankly, I disagree with them. So I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to see who gets the highway. Now, again, not a metrician. So I'm thinking something, you know, about like that. And I'm looking here and I say, well, I want some, I don't know if I want to do it lengthways, but the common way people seem to like is to put the cutouts, the dips on the edge of the fire pot towards the short edge or towards the long edge. So turned opposite, the table would be long this way and the fire pot would be long that way. So I know I want some space, working space. Again, I want to make at least a little useful table. And we got 14.5 inches. So thinking about what's commonly available materials in my area, I'm guessing about my original guess was going to be bigger than this, but the price was not right. I measured my door and said, 28 inches is the narrowest door in the house. So if I make it 28 inches, I can get it anywhere in the house, you know, for storage purposes, you know, because it's just going to take up space in the garage eventually, right? And so you got to put your fire pit inside and the winter comes. Yeah. So, taking that back, of course, 28 inches means basically stepping up to the next size of commonly available stock. So I found that something I can purchase, 36 by 24, that's 3 feet by 2 feet. So that would make this 36 and this 24 inches. You know, I could also do something like 48. I saw, God forbid, wooden tabletops, 48 by 36, 48 by 24. So I could go even longer. But I want to do some. I did some measuring, approximating, guessing what I might want to put where. And I decided to err on the side of efficiency. If I don't build it big enough, I'll put some wings on it or something, you know. So throw some piano hinges in there, and it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't want to make it bigger than I need it to be until I need it to be, right? So cost optimization. So all right. So let's take this example, a 36 by 24, and think about, well, where is this going to leave us? So if this whole thing is 24, and this 14 and a half, 24 minus 14 is 10 inches and 9.5 inches. Divide by 2 is about that much. 4.25. Curse my English units here. I blame the Queen personally. So yeah, I could be wrong. Yeah, not 4.25, 4.25, 8. Oop, I lost the thing. Hold up. Okay, fix that for you. 24 minus 14.5 is 9.5. Divide by 2 is 4 3/4. 4.75, 4.75. Half of 9 is 4.5. Plus half a half is a quarter is 4.75. And then we're of course measuring in double tick marks. Yeah. So that's some slim pickings as far as it's not really working space. You know, it keeps your dingus from reaching the fire, at least if you're me. So I guess that's good enough. I'll do some consultating and see how close people put their tools to the fire, to the edge, to the whatchamacallits. But this would allow me, in theory, you know, not in practice, to lay something across the forge in the cutouts explicitly for that purpose and right off the table. Now, hopefully I don't need anything to hold whatever, or I'll be standing there doing it. Definitely not a hands-free operation, but this kind of stuff is not to be left unattended anyway. Now, Going the other way should be simple because we're all very familiar with inches, and so multiples of 12 and subtracting and adding 12 and multiples of 12 is all second nature to us. We got 36 inches lengthways, 12 inches on the fire pot, whatever. It's 24 inches left. Oh, how convenient. 3 feet, 2 feet, 1 foot. So we know that we could, theoretically, we could place this in the center and give us 12 inches on either side. Now, that's kind of like, I can't really, how much work can I do with 12 inches on one side as far as a table goes? It might as well just be a placeholder to keep things out of the fire. If I put a tool down next to a blazing inferno 12 inches away, I put anything down, really, that might be coal storage at best, because nothing else is going to be usable to put there. I'm thinking, just to make it pretty, I will come instead. You're gonna love this dimensioning here. Same, 4, 7, 5 inches. So we have the same gap on 3 sides. Offset this guy. Then we have a bigger working space over here. So let me do some configurating. Grab the straight edge. So we've got ambiguously dimensioned fire pit. Ambiguously dimensioned fire pit. Slight overshoot to the left. I'm only doing this for illegibility's sake. So for all intents and purposes, I don't have to worry about anybody stealing my blueprint. Nobody wants it. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Our fire pot over here with the whatever trapezoidal shape cutouts, basketball field, playing soccer, or what you call it. So 4, 7, 5. This is the bootleg copy of Dave CAD. If you've ever seen it, there was Dave CAD and then just Ave CAD. This is just CAD. Or just D CAD. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I stole Dave CAD because my name is still Dave. So anyway, that leaves us with the 12 inches. We gotta figure out what to do with. Doesn't fit anywhere. Hate when that happens. And 36 was the overall. 36 minus 12, 24. 24 minus 475 is 20 minus 0.75 is 19 and a quarter. So this, gonna have to use some imagination to interpret this. It's not the thing in itself. It's just a reminder of what the thing in itself was supposed to be when you do this. You guys, you're learning the process here, though, right? Like there's some iteration. Measure once, guess twice, cut 3 times. Yeah. So 19.5 by the full 24-inch width. That seems like a pretty good working space. And I'm thinking, I hadn't measured. Well, I eyeballed, but I'm thinking probably fall something around there. Best use of a straight edge ever. I could put, I think it only has 3 holes, but whatever, accuracy's sake. I could put a vise. So, to stick your Richard in a hose clamp, and there's a curly Q and slides and the anvil, something, as a vise. Try not to think too hard about it. The vise in the basketball court. Yeah, so, and maybe I'm wrong here. This might actually take up more of this, but let's say a third by a third. That's what I was going for before I settled on using the lines as guidance and got it totally wrong. Yeah, so I can, I've seen these fellers on the internet like to put their coal right up next to the fire, for burning the house down. I've seen, it's a good place, you need a place to set your tools when you're doing any work. And why would I want to set my tools on any other bench anywhere away from the forge when I want to use the forge? So the tools that go with the forge and the forging need to be set near the forge. So this space over here allows for that. I also have some clever schemes. The vise, it's got a pivot. Well, hypothetically, if I want to work with something long and I don't want to deal with it and I'm just doing just the tip routine, I clamp it in the vise with the pivot pointed where it's sitting down here in the fire pit. So you'll need to do some careful clevering on your vise location for that, or just eyeball it like I'm probably going to do. But in some hypothetical way, that might lead you to a situation where you will hold a longer-ish object. Well, turn this thing around part way, and it's at this angle here with the vise arm sticking out. Maybe you've got 18 inches, 12 inches from the fire pit. So, to be able to hold something about like that. Wouldn't be too big, just to heat a piece of metal hands-free and watch it melt. Now, I'm also thinking probably, it'd be nice, maybe this is a future upgrade, drill some holes or stick some magnets, make some kind of tool holders for the hammers and the tongs and whatever else you got to go there. Of course, they're just laying all over every surface of the garage right now. I got 3 hammers laying on the vise on a different table presently, because you never want to walk over and get a different size hammer when you need a bigger or smaller one, and I always grab the biggest one, so what the others are for, I don't know. Yeah. And one last thing, just so I can commit to making a huge mistake before I actually do it. I've seen virtually every fella who's built any sort of forge, they all have a lip around them that's sticking up vertical from the table for holding coal, whatever, to get your coal up close to the fire, to dry it, cook it, what have you. You're in the chain of command of moving your way from coal to coke to molten slag. I've also seen just as many people complaining about how they had to build their fire extra high to clear something, to get something big into it. Well, I'm thinking, dang, we got these cutouts here for getting down low so we don't have to build the tall fire. I also personally don't want to have to deal with wind issues. I would rather come up with a more clever solution when I'm not dealing with wind issues, that I don't have this obstruction in the way. So if these edges cause you to have to add a few inches to the height of your fire to get your metal down in there, now of course you're doing it at an angle, maybe it's not so bad. For whatever reason, I'm going to leave these out. There will be no fence around the edge of the forge table until I find out it was a huge mistake, and then I'll tack it on later with a weld. So what that will do is give me a nice flat working surface everywhere, and worst case scenario, best case scenario, I'll throw, if I need it for wind protection or just temporarily, I'll throw some fire bricks around the forge, maybe put them up on edge, something. And if absolutely necessary, I might come back and put a fence, just over on this side of the table, or 2 corners, or half the table with some notches cut out for putting stuff across. I want it to be flexible, so I like the brick idea. The only other thing I thought is I may experiment with building some kind of, let's look at this for a moment to match our other dimensions. About like that, 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 about like that. Doing some kind of cast refractory cardboard box horror. Just a tent, just a little garage carport that sits over the top of the fire pit for both wind protection If it's open on, say, one side or open straight through for doing longer pieces, so yeah, that's probably the more versatile thing. And using fire bricks to cover the openings when I don't need it. But that would give me more concentrated heat, less fuel, less effort turning the blower or pedaling, the hamsters, whatever you got to do. So that, that's a secondary goal of the project, is to come up with something like this, where it's a quick and easy convertible, open top, not open top, closed all the way, make it a kiln. Heck, I could even theoretically throw a grill or something over this if I'm, has it made a refractory or what, I don't know. But, yeah, I could do something like that to make this more like an oven, make some s'mores. Yeah, so again, learning the process. I got some ideas on paper. I got some measurements down. I thought about other dimensions. I looked at, my first thought was, 36, because that's the easy round available stock material, 36 inches, 39. If you're a meter person, you would probably go for something like 39 inches. If you're a meter person, by 24, because I wanted 28. I really wanted like 32. Some of the doors around here are 32 inches, and the smallest one was 28. So I could go whole hog with a 32-inch wide, and maybe I'd probably have to take the automatic door closer gas spring off the porch door to get that thing through a 32-inch door. I know a 28-inch door or to a 28-inch table would clear everything, no disassembly of the door frame required. But 24, small sacrifice. It saves on space when I'm not using the thing, which is going to be 98% of my adult life. And, it's way cheaper than buying a bigger sheet and expending the effort to cut it back down. The other controversial thing that I'm going to experiment with here, and it's quite probably going to happen, is that I'm going to put this thing up on casters, and therefore I can't just have some post legs or whatever with no structural rigidity. I need it to be square and true, and I'm going to build it like I've built my other granite surface table, end table with a granite surface slab on it, just the 300-pound end table. I'm going to use support across the bottom to tie in the vertical legs, so that they're the same width at the top and bottom. Everything stays square. Everything stays rigid. Of course, I'm not going to have any diagonal bracing, but this is all going to be super overkill welded steel. That's what this guy is. This is a leftover cutoff of one of the bottom braces that tied together the short side legs. So imagine this was blowed up to size, and this was actually a longer piece. It tied that together, welded the corner posts on either end, and drilled holes in it so that I could bolt my casters to it. So it, super overkill for essentially that one was even smaller than this, like I said, the 300-pound end table. But this was at the hardware store. It was the same thickness as the side pieces I was using. I got a bunch of scrap. My buddy JJ, he likes to wheel and deal and go look at the estate sales and Craigslist rapists. So he found a bunch of scrap metal, and I bought some off of him. And you do what you can, save a buck, and make some good friends while doing it. So with that in mind, I don't want to just tie this together. And again, I did this already on the other tinier table, and of course it was for an entirely different purpose, so that was totally fine there. But I also had a shelf across the bottom, so tying it together not just from the short side to the short side, but the entire bottom solid plate. Well, this guy has an ash dump, so I have two options really there. I can run an extended pipe off the ash dump, cut a hole in the table, and go straight through the bottom. But I don't really care for that, because who knows where I'm going to park my table. I probably don't want to dump my ashes on the porch. So that's plan B if plan A doesn't work. Plan A is I'm going to run this thing with no special precaution, you know, for dumping it straight to the ground, I will fabricable up a new or old or re-weld what I got gate for the ashes. But I'm going to put just like a, you know, a 10 bucket. This thing is going to be a steel table with a steel shelf on the bottom. I'm just going to put a metal bucket to collect the ashes underneath like your charcoal grill does. If anybody think that's a terrible idea and it's going to burn down my house, let me know, because, you know, I will probably finish this project before I post the video. So I'll just put that bucket on the bottom shelf, and then the other 2/3 or whatever of the shelf is now storage space. And it's going to have casters, so it's going to be forge tools, maybe more forge tools, coal, ash, storage space that moves around. Because nowhere do I have a pole barn on my, you know, little 1/4 acre slice of hell to have any of this stuff just operating. It's going to have to be rolled out, use it, put it back. It's got to be space efficient. It's got to be organized. I'm terrible at both of those things, so I'm planning ahead. That's the major goal of this forge table. I could just build a stand and call it good, but I want it to be functional. I want it to be pretty. I want to make you all jealous, and I want to make people come from Instagram to watch this video. So gotta start somewhere, right?